To make your pin cushion, follow the steps here listed on the handout. Step 1 says to fold the fabric pretty side to pretty side. Most of your fabrics will have a pretty side. That's where the color is brighter. So you're going to lay it pretty side to pretty side so they're touching. Step 2 says to trace the pin cushion pattern, whether you chose a star or a heart, onto the ugly side of the fabric. We're always going to draw on the ugly side so it can't be seen. If you have a big piece of material, as it says, you're going to place it in the upper left corner, not to waste it in the middle of the fabric. Trace the lines with a pencil or a pen and include the start and stop lines. The start and stop lines are going to be important for when you sew. They of course tell you where to start and stop, and that opening is important for when you flip it inside out. Then you're going to cut around the shape, leaving about 1/2 inch of extra fabric all around. A good rule is about a finger's worth away. Is brighter, so you're going to lay it pretty side so they're touching. Step 2 says to trace the pin cushion pattern, whether you chose a star or a heart, onto the ugly side of the fabric. We're always going to draw on the ugly side so it can't be seen. If you have a big piece of material, as it says, you're going to place it in the upper left corner, not to waste it in the middle of the fabric. Trace the lines with a pencil or a pen and include the start and stop lines. The start and stop lines are going to be important for when you sew. They of course tell you where to start and stop, and that opening is important for when you flip it inside out. Then you're going to cut around the shape, leaving about 1/2 inch of extra fabric all around. A good rule is about a finger's worth away. Okay, number 4 is to pin the fabric underneath the sewing lines using about 5 to 6 pins. You don't need too many. When you pin it, you put the pin on the one side of the line, then you make sure it went all the way through. You flip it up and put it, and so the pin comes out on the other side. This of course is just going to secure your fabric so it doesn't slide when sewing. Make sure, a lot of kids just put it in like that, so make sure it's not, the end isn't sticking out. It needs to come up back under the line. Just a couple to get it secure. You could even do one in the middle if you like. Number 5 says, start on the start line. Either of the lines you made is okay. Backstitch and start sewing around the shape. Remove the pins as you sew. I'm going to go ahead and start over here. I'm going to go ahead and take my presser foot and lay it down. Put the needle down for where the starting line is, and I'm just going to go until the end and then backstitch. When I end at my corner, I'm going to leave my needle down, lift the presser foot, and spin. I'm going to line up my sewing line with the needle, remove the pin, and go again. And continue doing this for all sides. When you are done sewing around your shape and you have backstitched, then be sure to cut your threads short. It's important that you use the start and stop lines because of course that's where you're going to flip it inside out. In order to get nice corners here, it would be very effective if you took your scissors and just cut the tip of the material off. And you will know that that will be a benefit when you flip it inside out. If you cut too much, you may cut into the fabric, so go ahead and just cut the tip off just a little bit and then start flipping it inside out. When you flip your shape inside out, be sure to push the corners and some of the seams to get a start to the shape, and don't worry if it looks a little odd. It will gain shape when you put in the fiber fill. So we are at step 9. You are flipping your project inside out and you're pushing at your corners. You can use a wooden stick, which may be found in your fiber fill bag, or you can use like a dull pencil. You really want to make sure you get the corners so it looks like a true shape. Otherwise mine might be like a rounded star. So you can also get the corners out after you push in your fiberfill, just a little bit at the end to perfect it. Step 10 says to fill with fiberfill. Check if it's full by inserting a straight pin to remove it. So I'm going to start by just taking some fiberfill and pushing it through the opening of the project. You're going to fill it so that way it gains its shape. Step 10 says to fill your pincushion with the fiberfill. You may check to see if it's full by putting a straight pin in the center, and when you remove it, if the pincushion stays on the table, then it is full enough. So you can kind of judge to see how you like it. You may take the stick or your finger to help push the fiberfill into all the corners, and you may also take a pin to pull out the corners if they are still not right. Step 11 says to hand sew the opening. So the best way to do this is to place it in between your legs. You're going to take the raw edge, which is that part of the material. You take the raw edge and fold it in. We don't want to see any fraying. You're going to see a nice line form for where the pincushion needs to be sewn. So get a hand sewing needle threaded. Go ahead and put the hand sewing needle forward. You're going to go ahead and just dip down and take a little bit of fabric. Pull the needle through. Right where that came up, put the needle in on the other side, moving forward. Notice I'm not going side to side, I'm just pushing forward. And you may call or pull. This is called the blind ditch stitch. And you are just working away and sewing this back together. And the goal at the end, of course, is for you to not be able to tell which side of your pincushion you have hand sewn. When you get to the end, you're going to end your stitch to secure it just like you do when sewing on a button. You're going to put the needle through a little bit of fabric, turn the needle around and pull, and you're going to continue to do that 3 times. Number 2, number 3. Choose a thread color too that fits your project well. Make sure you cut your ends pretty short, but of course not so that way you cut the knot off. And then you're finished.